And welcome to another exciting episode of Conspire Theory. I have with me a friend, Riley, from the Midwest Mythos podcast. Riley, how's it going?
It's going great, man. How you doing?
We're doing fantastic. You're coming in super crystal clear. We had some like little issues up and forth, and it's like, oh, let's just plug it in and plug it back in again. And what do you know? It fixed all our problems.
That seems to always be the solution.
uh, I'll admit, of all the podcasts, this new crop of fresh new blood that's been coming up, you're one of the people that I'm really glad got behind the microphone when you did, because it's your show has been phenomenal. I'll like wait for like up to 3 to 4 episodes to pop up, then I binge them. You've been doing several episodes covering some political, not I mean conspiratorial stuff with a friend of yours, Caleb, and you guys go back and forth and do some really good stuff. And I really enjoy it, and I'm really glad that you popped onto the scene. And and I and we'll I'll just share you with the audience now and tell them a little bit about what it is, what you do, and where you're from.
All right. So, as you said, I'm Riley, the host of Midwest Mythos podcast. Um, so I'm from the southern Michigan, northern Indiana area. Been here my whole entire life. Real close to Lake Michigan. Wild place to live. One of the wildest places in the world to live, maybe besides the Appalachians for stuff going on. But yeah, been doing this podcast for since May. It's been a lot of fun, and thank you for all the kind words you had. I'm having a blast with it. Had some awesome people on, such as yourself. The episode we did together, one of the more high energy episodes, definitely one of the more fun ones that I've recorded. I had a blast with it, and yeah, that's about.
Yeah, well, I've had a blast listening to a lot of yours. Most recent one that's fresh in my mind is the Antarctic one. That was a lot of fun with you and Caleb. You guys did a fantastic job covering the ins and outs. I remember, I think there was this comic book, this issue of Hellboy, where they did this issue where they covered the Antarctic stuff and they talked about the spiders and all this stuff and all of that. And I had, and then when I looked into it, the Antarctic stuff was like, whoa, okay, so that's a deep cut, and that you guys were to cover that. That was pretty cool, So uh, when it comes to Antarctic stuff, I usually just imagine that the secret cabal and stuff. It actually turns out to be penguins that they're just ruling the world. Like when the first Trump election happened, John Kerry flew down and he took a knee to the penguin overlords and said, "I'm sorry, things didn't go the way we did. Please, please, please." And then there's some penguin just sitting on a hill that just says, "Not good enough, Kerry," and just slaps the shit out of him and he goes flying. That's why he has a black eye. Around that time, I think they said that he got a black eye or something. And I'm like, a penguin overlord got pissed off and slapped the shit out of him.
Hey man, it's the suits. They're always ready for the occasion. It, they don't. They're not naturally that color. They got their little penguin paint, so they're always business professional. And I don't know, man. I feel like getting pimp slapped by a penguin. That would not be not be a good time. But
Yeah.
I'm
Who
glad.
knows what they did to what was it? I think it was Buzz Aldrin or something. He's like, "It's evil, it's evil." He had some sort of creepy ass tweet. Who knows what they did to him?
Uh, I don't know, man. But I'm glad you enjoyed the Antarctica episode because I'm not gonna lie, I was really worried about that episode because believe it or not, it was a total just last second. Hey, I need to record something in 15 minutes. I didn't have an interview this week, so I called my buddy Caleb up and I was like, let's talk about Antarctica. And he's like, okay. And I've gotten with this feedback and from other people, I'm starting to think about doing a secondary, like maybe once a month segment for the show called Talking Mythos, where either me and my buddy Caleb or every once in a while we bring somebody else on to have like a third party
Yeah, it
and
wouldn't hurt to have a round table.
we just choose a topic. Everybody does their own little research on it, and we just talk about it. No, no plan, no nothing, just see where it goes. Because me
Yeah,
personally, I really like that kind of stuff.
yeah, I get it. There's when it comes to conspiracy, we have our greatest hits that keep coming back, and whether it be the Admiral Byrd Hollow Earth or the the Grenada Treaty with Eisenhower and the Greys. I mean, whether or not it's not, it's sort of it's just a really good story. It's no different than it's what passes for history in our community, the paranormal community. It's
Mhm.
no different than when the history shows do the the founding fathers. Let's talk about Benjamin Franklin. This is no different. This is like it's sort of our history and stuff like this. And I'm glad that you're coming at it with a fresh perspective and going over the greatest hits. So I definitely commend you for that.
Oh, thank you. There's there's so many of them, and let's be honest. We can be honest with each other here. I love history, but like you said, like learning about the founding fathers, learning about the basic stuff of Rome, Egypt, the Civil War, all that kind of stuff. It's interesting, but it's just the top of the barrel. All the good stuff, you got to do all the research. You actually got to talk to people, and then that's where we get the real fun history. That this right here, this is my history class. This is my AP history.
Yeah, it's a deep dig, and there is it is important that we understand the history of the paranormal, because so many times in the culture we end up with people like they think they can take stuff and rinse, wash, and repeat it. I mean, I'm not favorable towards the disclosure movement right now. I feel it's not my bag,
Hmm.
because a lot of the stuff that they're doing, they're taking a lot of history, and it's no different than what they tried to do 30 years ago or 30 years before that. It seems to be the cyclical thing where every 30 years someone decides to come up and talk to the congressional stuff, and there's a bunch of talk, a bunch of hubbub, a bunch of course now with social media and stuff, there's a lot of downloads and clicks, and a lot of these people sell tickets talking to the Congress and stuff, and it's a whole lot of nothing that goes nowhere, and they're like making references to stuff that's already amounted to nothing. And I think it's because of the lack of educational history, of knowing that and seeing it coming, that I feel like the people are having the wool pulled over their eyes yet again. And of course, people are welcome to disagree with me on that. I don't know what is your take.
So I have a very similar take to that. And I was actually just talking last week. I had the Ancient Enigma files on, and Joseph, the guy that runs it, he was actually there, and we're just talking, just going over it. Just this one, for example, because it's the most recent. Um, but even the stuff that has a little bit of meat to it that they're giving out is stuff that people like you and me, who have looked into the stuff for years, already know about it. So it really is just, even though they're giving the masses something there, your analogy of pulling the wool over their eyes is that, because the way our social media and everything works, it's no longer 15 minutes we'll just use the 15 minutes of fame, even though it's not that. Everything's so quick, it's more like 15 to 10 seconds that our memory holds something of anything. So it's just everything's going by. So I think by them mass dumping all this kind of stuff every so and so years, they're doing it just so they can say they did it, and it completely just gets pushed away by something else. Because I have a feeling that they're going to start dropping some stuff here in the next couple weeks, and then soon as the office shifts from our current president to the next, we're all going to forget about whatever it is they drop here in the next 2 weeks. It's, I don't know, man. Unless you're in this kind of stuff, they're just trying to flood everything else. Like, if that made any sense.
Well, the whole situation itself doesn't make any sense, and those of us that are either hardened skeptics or deep lore historians, there's a lot that does not make sense. But we're not the ones on the podium, so we don't have that say.
Hmm.
And I do think your perspective is valid. I really do like your approach to it, and I'm trying to not use the words fresh and young in reference to you, because I mean it's just it I don't know. I'm so tempted to just reach through the screen and pinch your cheeks and say, "What a good boy," and pat your head and shit. But I'm not saying that just to degrade you in any way, but because we are totally different generations,
Uh huh.
but we have a lot of commonalities in this interest in this stuff like this. So if it comes off like I'm patronizing you, just shut up, kid.
Oh,
Put
yeah.
up with it.
You're all good. I've gotten that, and I knew what I was getting into this because. But I will say it. I will say this before I get into it. It is nice in this field, the paranormal conspiracy field, because the generational gaps in every other aspect of life, it is you got your oldest generation to your youngest, and everyone looks down on one another, doesn't want to listen to other generations. But I've noticed being because I could be wrong, but at least in this paranormal conspiracy field, I think I am the youngest media creator right now, at least doing a podcast. So I've gotten a lot from people like, "Oh, we don't see it from this perspective because one, we've grew up in all these totally different generations, different technology and stuff, but the stuff that's out like right now, like the phones and stuff, I was like the last generation to have phones on the wall, but I got the smartphones but I was young with that, so my access to knowledge at a much vaster scale has been since I was younger. So I was able to get into the stuff younger and start a different perspective when most people in their 30s plus had to wait for a library book to kind of find the stuff. So I don't, in short, I don't take it to a offense at all. It's actually when I hear that, it actually invigorates me to cool. I'm bringing something new to the table.
Oh, yeah.
Even yeah. So yeah,
Yeah, that's good. Just give yourself another decade or two, and then it'll wear off. The
probably.
So, what initially, when it came to like starting your podcast, what made you decide to get behind the mic and turn it back on? What was the driving element of that?
So as it says in the intro of my show, ever since I was a young boy, I've been fascinated with the mysteries of the unknown, creatures, people's encounters with them, and nobody believes them, but they have the scars to prove them. Since I was little, I've been interested in aliens, Bigfoot, everything, ancient history. So I was always reading the books and stuff like that, getting the knowledge, absorbing it, Monster Quest, finding Bigfoot to make it short was all I consumed. Ancient aliens. Well, once I got to high school, it kind of slowed down for a little bit, but I was taking engineering classes, and because they were college classes, I was able to put headphones in, and I got tired of listening to music because I listen to music all day, every day. So I was just flipping through, and Sasquatch Chronicles came up. And I was like, oh, I used to love Bigfoot. Like, I'm still into it, but not like I was. So I started listening to it, and I was like, this is cool. I didn't know there was this whole world out here of normal people like me, not some History Channel, Travel Channel person, just talking to people about their experiences. So I got really big into it, got real big into the confessionals and stuff like that. And like 5 years went by, and I was at a Bigfoot convention down the road from my house, and I met my good buddy Shane Jones there. He had a little booth set up with his daughter. Nobody went to the booth all day, but I like to talk to people, and so I went up there at 11 in the morning, drank a beer. I already drank a little too much beer, but they had a special beer that they said was going to be sold out by noon, so I had to get it while I could. It was a Bigfoot themed beer, and it was delicious. So I sit and I'm talking to Shane, and he's telling me about his podcast and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's awesome, man. Well, me and him got really close, and he's like, have you ever thought about doing a show? And I was like, yeah, I thought about it. I've been listening to this stuff since I was in high school, but I just don't know how to get it going. He's like, well, here's my card. Get a hold of me. Started texting him. Me and him became brothers, and he's he was like, come on, man, when are you gonna start your show? He's like, this is everything you need. So I bought all the stuff, but for 2 years, wherever I was living, I did not have internet. I had dial up, so I couldn't do a show. Well, flash forward to May of this year, my wife, when we moved into our house, was like, hey, what's all this stuff? And I was like, oh, that's my podcast equipment. I was going to start a podcast. She's like, well, do it. You need something to do because all you're doing is sitting watching TV and playing video games. Do something else. I was like, okay. So I texted Shane. I was like, hey, man, let's do an episode. He's like, you going to do the podcast now? I was like, yep, let's do it. So basically, that's it. That's how I started. And I was like, okay, here it is. I guess I'm gonna start texting people, seeing if they want to come on the show and have a conversation about really anything. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good because I saw you post within Shane's community, and it was there you were looking for guests and stuff, and I was like, I listened to a couple shows, make sure to vet you, make sure that you weren't a moron. But luckily, with Shane, giving you some tutelage, also you do have some background in music and stuff, so
Mm-hmm.
you do understand, sound engineering to a degree, which I hear in your show, and I appreciate that you take the time to make sure that everything sounds good. And I definitely had to hop on. I several of the community members just hopped onto your show to share their experiences, and since then you've been hitting the ground running, producing your own shows, not just interviews, but also you like we were just talking with the Antarctic episodes, more focused conversation, sort of finding your own voice in uh in this space, and I really do enjoy it. I like seeing it happen. It's definitely a welcome new one more regular thing for me to get into. So I definitely appreciate that, and I thank you for that, being a podcast provider for that.
I thank you for that. And yeah, I love messing with sound. I'm actually to the point now where I'm getting frustrated with what I have because I know with just a few extra pieces, give it those few extra pieces, cost quite a bit, quite a bit of money. Um, I could make it like Joe Rogan level, like audio quality and stuff like that. But I don't need it right now. It I have fun with this, but I've worked in music studios. I was a stage manager in high school and college. I did lights and sound for my college's plays and stuff. So I've always had a fascination, and but technology has its limits and stuff like that too. But I mean, what I got now, I have a lot of fun with it. Like I hear a lot of podcasters talking about how they hate editing. They don't like going through listening to this to your own episode 5 6 times trying to figure out, oh, can I raise this here, can I change this here, make it sound a little bit better. But I mean, it's it's our art, so for me it's like I want to put out the best I can, give it. Sometimes stuff happens, but you ain't got 6 7 hours to sit down and crank an episode. But it's fun, and I appreciate you saying that. And that's like my biggest insecurity about podcasting is, does my stuff sound good? I remember one time you commented on a picture of mine I posted, and my decibels were way down. And you're like, "Hey, man, I think you should crank those up." And I was like, "Oh!" So I went and changed all that stuff and re-uploaded the episode. You were a lifesaver.
Yeah. The When it comes to the what you're describing, there is a condition called analysis paralysis, where you end up getting in the editing bay and you try to fix every single little thing. There's a point where you just have to release the goddamn episode. It's very hard for artistic, creative people like ourselves to decide when something is finished, when a piece of art is finished. I'll do that with all my drawings and stuff, and it's like, you got to hit a point where you're satisfied with these episodes. I've hit to the point where unless something obscene happens, I'll cover like basic editing type of stuff because I want to get the episode out. It's got to get it so that way it could breathe and do its thing. And if it's a major concern, then I'll take care of it next time, type of thing. It's been a very fun thing, and I know what you mean when there's always something, this other piece, this other doohickey that you got to grab onto and snag onto, and I'm always updating my inner studio and getting stuff up. I'm always looking at programs, comparing, contrasting. Am I going to stay on this? Am I going to stay on Zencaster, or am I going to move to Podcastle? Do
Mhm.
I move to Zoom? Do I go to Riverside? Do I check that out? There's so many options out there. So I could see it. I could definitely see that where it's like, what are we going to do with all this stuff?
Luckily I have a wife that puts a hard stop to my ideas and fantasies with stuff. She's like, "Oh, well, you can get that in like a year or so, or when I'm because I do all my editing on Monday nights. When I could sit there for hours upon hours doing it, usually I hear some stomping on the floor. Hey, get upstairs. I want to spend time with you. Episode's good enough." And so I'm very lucky to have that hard boundary from me taking the deep end with it. Otherwise, I would be in a lot of debt for sound equipment.
Yeah. It's good that you got someone to stay on your ass for that. And at the same time, who supports your craft.
Hmm.
That is endearing, and I definitely hope that your family can grow from that, and it benefits them, and because so many times the show, it becomes a hindrance to the family unit. It becomes an obstacle. But if you guys can learn how to manage your time and do all that stuff, I mean, good on you for that. And I'm definitely appreciative of your support of though strict wife for enabling you.
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said there was days where the show didn't make things a little bit more stressful than they needed to. But I think after about we're 8 months in now, we've kind of got a schedule going on. Every once in a while, there's that oddball interview time where it's like 10 in the morning kind of deal on a Saturday that kind of throws a hindrance in plans, but that's one in every 20 episode kind of deal. So, yeah.
Yeah, we gotta. And when you deal with people's time zones and like where they're from and what they're doing and all that stuff, it's a lot to juggle. It
Hmm.
is. Now, when it comes to paranormal and stuff, what are some of your firsthand experiences? Have you dealt with any, cryptids? Have you faced any aliens? Seen any UFOs? Got grabbed by a ghost or something, or anything like that? Anything like that come across your path?
Oh, funny you mentioned all those because all those have happened to me. I I had a pretty boring life until I got into my teenage years. Started messing with stuff I shouldn't have, and then yeah, stuff starts happening, and it just seems to keep on happening. I'm on a slow slope right now, where nothing's really happening, which I'm grateful for. I mean, it's bad for content, but it's pretty good right now. But yeah, so I guess I'll start out with UFOs. This one incident in particular. So as I mentioned, I'm from the Lake Michigan area, and if people aren't familiar with that area, biggest bodies of fresh water in the world, and it's got its own little Bermuda Triangle called the Lake Michigan Triangle. There's a lot of weird stuff that goes on in that area. So one night when I was in high school, I was about 16, 17 at the time, and I was coming home from robotics practice. Some of the real dedicated members of the team, we would stay there till about 11 o'clock, 11:30 at night on a school night, just trying to get last second stuff done. I was coming home and it was thunderstorming out. So I'm driving along Lake Michigan on a bluff, and I always look to the skies. Grew up watching Ancient Aliens, and that's what he told me to do. Look up in the sky. So I had to do what History Channel man told me to do. So it's storming. I'm looking out over the lake. I hit a break in the bluff where it's just lake, and I see these five orangish red dots. They're not exactly like a pentagon, but they're a pentagon-ish shape. And I'm just watching them, and I'm watching them. Then hit some trees, lose sight of them for a second. They're out over the lake, about a quarter mile out, a few 100 feet up in the air. They're not super high. And once I get past the trees, I just see them zip off. And so I called my old man, and I was like, "You're never going to believe this." And he's like, "What, Riley? You saw a UFO?" And I was like, "Yeah." "How'd you know?" He's like, "Because this ain't the first time you've called me. But every other time it's just been weird lights in the sky that move a little weird. But this was like the first." I was like, "No, this is different." So he hung up. I was 5 minutes away from home, and we talked about it there. But it was weird. I had never seen anything like it before, like that close. And like I said, it was thundering and stuff outside. So I was like, "Oh, maybe it's floodlights or something like that." But then I really broke it down. I was like, "No, ain't none of the mansions out there have floodlights like that. It's too far out. It's out in the lake." So I don't know. I just definitely more than just a normal little light up in the sky that's moving weird. So
Hmm.
that's the biggest I mean, I've seen like silver bullet, well, cigar shaped ones out over my grandparents' farm. Me and my grandpa watched it for like 15 minutes. Forgot about it, turned back, and it was gone. Seen that a few times out there, but that was also out towards over the lake. But yeah, that's my big UFO sighting. Then
Yeah. So, as far as you know, nothing came out and messed with you. Nothing landed. You didn't. You didn't mess with the occupants or the driver by any chance, did you?
no, I didn't get that lucky this time. I've always wanted to box an alien, but didn't get that opportunity that day, unfortunately. Now, other people in that area have, unfortunately, because they didn't want any of that stuff to happen to them. But some of the stuff they've told me leads me to believe that they got close and personal with them. But it's not uncommon for people to see stuff like that out there. Actually, my buddy Caleb, I had on a show, he was just out there a few months ago, sitting out by the bluff. Hey, he saw something out over the lake. It was actually, if not the exact same bluff I saw this over, it was the next one over. And he saw it. He called me. He's like, "You're never going to believe what I just saw." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "I think I saw a UFO over the lake." He's like, "I tried taking a picture of it, but I couldn't see anything." But then he's got that new Samsung phone with the crazy camera on it, and he put a filter, like changed the lighting and made it negative, and you can see this orb out there. And he said it was like a yellowish, orangish orb. At that point, the sun had already gone down. So, and then I've had actually a gentleman on my show, Michael, one of the first episodes. He also recalls seeing stuff like that over the lake, one or two bluffs over from that one. So there's a lot of stuff that's unexplainable. Light, light phenomenon, UAPs, probably USOs in this case, um, just in that general area, and it's right by one of the points of the Lake Michigan Triangle.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. I mean that it's stuff like that that's like there's a lot of weird shit out there, and it's like other than witnessing it, there's not a lot we can do with it. It's like what now, you know? And I can understand where some people they drive themselves crazy with this like, okay, I've had this experience. Now what? And either it's in the early days, it would ruin your life, or you would start a cult, Heaven's Gates type of stuff, or you become Travis Walton or something of that, or Whitley Strieber.
Hmm.
And if you can't become one of those guys, then you're pretty much fucked.
Yeah.
But now with more, I guess, podcasts and stuff, with it, the thing that podcast did was it, in a sense, lowered the bar of entry for people like us to regular Joes to make our mark.
Hmm.
But it also opened the field for like more, I guess, casual sightings and stuff like that to come to the forefront as well, and for people to share their stories, and I think that's helped a little bit. But as far as the greater, what to do with UFOs, I'm still scratching my head. That's why I have a passive interest in it if it's related to stuff like aliens and stuff like that, because that's my bag, is aliens and shit, because I'm all about that type of stuff. So
Hmm.
so what else you got for me?
All right. Yeah. So, um, we can get into we'll get into the dream slash sleep paralysis. So I guess
Yeah,
I should.
go right ahead.
Uh, there's a little. I'll give the super quick version of the story because this one usually turns into 45 minutes. So,
All right.
all right. So for a long time, I was a super atheist. Like I would usually, I'm pretty nice, humble, caring guy, very loving, love your neighbor, all that good kind of stuff. Good person. Pat myself on the back. But whenever people would like bring up God and stuff, I would get really angry at them, and I would start cussing them out and like probably spitting in their face a little bit as I'm doing it. Just I turn really hateful with that. So some time goes by. I'm actually talking with my buddy, hanging out with my buddy Caleb, and we're sitting there, and his stepfather comes in and talks to us, and he's like, "Hey, we're talking about aliens." And his stepfather's like, "Hey, can we, Riley, can I give you another side of this?" I'm like, "Sure, man." I knew where he was going. He wanted to talk about Jesus, and normally I would get mad, but this man loved me like his own son.
Yeah,
So I'm
he's
like,
probably bigger than you and could kick your ass.
no, no, but I was 20 at this time. I've always been a big dude, but but I would have let him if it came to that. But respect your elders. But he so I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll let you talk. Maybe you can give me a different perspective. So we're talking. He's giving me the gospel and stuff like that, and we get to the end of it. I'm feeling real anxious, stressed, like, oh no, kind of feel. And throughout the night, I hear him tell me to read the book of Job 3 different times. So I go home and I read that whole book, one of the longest books in the Bible. I read it and came back the next day. I was like, I believe in God. I read Job. This is what happened. And he was like, why the hell would you read Job? And I was like, because you told me to read it. He's like, who the hell tells people to read Job for their first book in the Bible? He's like, I told you to read John. And for those who aren't familiar, Job is like, you get to see the Old Testament God like bring it down, but for a good reason. But so he's like, I don't know. God must have wanted you to hear that because I didn't want you to read Job because usually that turns people away because you have to have all the prefix to it. So that was the beginning of everything of my experiences was accepting Christ as my Savior. So the first thing that happens is I'm coming home. I was doing some blacksmithing. I was living with my grandparents at the time, and it's an important detail. I was driving my grandma's car because mine was out of gas. So I decided to just listen to some music, and I get down their driveway, and it's a long driveway to the farmhouse. So as I pull in the driveway, I just stop. I got the woods and the fields around me, and I feel like something's in the backseat watching me, but it's like that primal fear, like the, oh crap, I'm gonna die. And I wanted to turn around and look, but everything was telling me, don't turn around, get out. So I'm sitting there trying to open the vehicle, and I cannot get it open. I don't know if it was whatever this was, or me simply just not knowing the vehicle's buttons the best because I was just borrowing it. But I could not get out of the car to save my life. And eventually, when I got out of the car, that all left. Like the whole feeling left. I'm sitting out in the dark in the middle of the field, freaking out. I pop my head in the back, and there's nothing there. So I hop back in the vehicle, go inside. It's like midnight at this point, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning. My grandma's up; she's drinking a cup of coffee, and I decide to have one with her. And then I go to bed because I gotta work the next day. So I fall asleep, and I have this. I don't have dreams, Chris. I don't dream. Very so. Whenever I do have one, I remember every detail of it. So the dream starts out. I'm at an old campground I used to go with my grandparents, but we're in the tents only section, which is weird because in the dream we got a camper, and I'm sitting by the fire with this girl who I was interested in back in the day, and my buddy, and we're chilling by the fire, and I hear this rustling in the woods, and this creature that it has like a deer head skull as a skull, but it's big and jacked like a Sasquatch or a dog man, whatever. They both got similar builds, but it's got like pale skin like a rake. And it's kind of just like in the rake pose that most people see, but it's eating the head of a deer. And I'm freaking out. And everybody else is sitting there like, why are you freaking out, dude? And I'm like, because this thing right here. And everybody's like, no, he's cool, he's chill. Like, I don't know why you're freaking out. So I go into the camper and this thing follows me. It chases me around, messes with me for a little bit. Like it's scaring me. But like the dream changes and it goes into like a lucid 1.5 person view, third person. So it's first person, but I'm hovering over my body slightly. And the girl I was with, she's standing at the end of the pier. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go down there. I'm gonna tell her how I really feel about her. Time to get this setting straight. And there's this dude standing at the end of the pier there, and pretty handsome dude. Like I'm like, oh man, I'm in trouble. So I go inside, grab a drink of water out the tap, windows open in this cabin on the lake, and I hear him talking to her. He's like, oh, you're real beautiful, you're real smart, but you know, more importantly, Enochian. And I heard that and I snapped because I know that's an old demon language. And so I run out, I bust open the door, I run outside, I'm yelling all these Bible verses and stuff I didn't even know because I just started to believe in God. I hardly know the Bible at that point. I don't know what I'm saying. And the dude turns and looks at me, smiles, and morphs into that creature that I saw at the campground. And at that moment, I realized I was the only one seeing him as this creature. Everybody else was just seeing that guy. So it all made sense. So I start running down the pier to help her. And, and this thing just keeps on talking, yelling at me. And it starts charging towards me, yelling, your God has no power. You can't save her. There's nothing you can do. I'm going to kill you, stuff like that. And eventually he gets up to me and they get right in my face, and I can see it clear as day right now. He opens his mouth. He's got that generic, super big, like demon smile with all the gnarly teeth, and like he's opening his mouth to eat me. And I just wake up, and this is going to be like the weirdest case of. So usually, like when people have sleep paralysis, they're just laying down, and they can't move. Well, I shoot straight up in bed, but I cannot move at all. I'm just stuck like this, in Jesus' name I rebuke you, in Jesus' name I rebuke you, in Jesus' name I rebuke you. And I can't move. I'm yelling at the top of my lungs. I asked my grandparents about it, and they're like, no, we never heard you yelling. But I'm hyper fixated on the closet for some reason. And I, I don't know what happened. But it, when I woke up and I couldn't move, but I had that same feeling I felt in the vehicle that earlier that night, like something was gonna kill me. And that was the start of everything. So, any questions on that, or you want me to just keep on rocking and rolling?
No, it sounds like there was something in the back of the seat, and that's. I mean, the spiritual stuff. It's not my forte,
Hmm.
but from other friends and other friends in this field, they would have said that yeah, there was something in that back seat. That's what you experienced, and I'd be inclined to agree that maybe something because I do think there is something to transient spirits because I had one myself where I had like as soon as I moved in, I felt this presence for like the first 6 months that I lived here, and it was just like a shadow person of like a little girl that would walk down the hallway, and she had, the snake hair type flowing,
Hmm.
and but it was nothing scary, nothing malicious. It just, it's like, oh, that's a something that happened, but whatever it is, it obviously through your dreams, it sounds like it tried to ingrain itself into you culturally, like whatever it like it constructed the dream. This is just my take. It constructed it because that's what you're familiar with, and I think what really it probably was. It could be interpreted as it tried to tempt you somehow. That maybe the girl represented the innocent part of yourself because dreams are wacky like that,
Yeah.
and you standing up to it was it wasn't just for yourself, type of thing. It was, and then you, of course, showed that you had the strength to persevere and to push through it. And I think when you woke up, some of it probably still spilled over, you know, into the real, so to speak. And then that something like that. I don't know. That's my best guess. And whatever it is, I it sounds like it was a harrowing experience, but hopefully you're a better person for it, type of thing. That's one of those.
It did light a fire under my butt, that's for sure, in a lot of aspects of my life. It did. And I also think it opened the door, or was just showing me that the door was open for other stuff to happen too. Because uh, about a year later, I moved into a new house with my buddy Caleb and his wife, and the property, it just felt weird. And when we were there, we had some stuff happen. One of the biggest things that happened, and this was really the big kickoff in the house, was his wife had this bear, this old stuffed bear, button eyes and button nose, but like it was like the black marbles, not like a real button, but like that were poked in. So I get a call from my buddy, and he's like, "Hey, what'd you do to my wife's bear?" And I was like, "I didn't do nothing. I don't even know what bear you're talking about." He's like, "Well, when are you going to be home?" Well, I'm like 5 minutes, so I walk into the house. It's nighttime at this point, and I'm sitting there like, all right, man, what's this crap that's happening? Maybe the dog got into it or something like that. So I walk into the house, and the house just feels really, really heavy, like weird. And I walk into the bedroom, and I see this bear sitting up in the middle of the bed, eyes and nose pulled out, s- sitting directly in front of the bear where they would be on the face. So That was weird. And then I felt that presence that I felt in the car, that same feeling. And I'm like, do you guys feel this? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, well, that's the feeling I felt in that car that one. So it's raining and stuff outside. We go stand in the rain for a little while, get a game plan together because I was like, no, there's something spiritual happening in the house right now. But we go back in. I crack open my Bible, and at the front of my Bible is Psalm 23, and I just open that up and I start reading it throughout the house, and the mood just everything goes. The heaviness just goes down. It starts to feel better in the house, and I thought that was the end of everything until the creature in the woods happens. One night, I'm playing some video games. It's like 2 in the morning. I was working second shift, so that was my afternoon. Trying to play some Counter Strike with my friends, and my other buddy, that Caleb that I'm living with, comes in the room. He's been out by the fire all night because he's just make a fire and sit out there by himself. He's like, Riley, you need to come outside right now. I'm like, man, I'm in the middle of the game. Can it wait? He's like, no. And he starts describing what he's hearing to me. He's like, I've been listening to some of the shows you suggested to me, and between all our conversations, he's like, I think there's something you want to hear out in the woods. And I'm like, what? Well, he's like, oh, I heard some coyotes yipping, and he's a big hunter, so he knows all the different sounds of all the animals in Michigan. And he's like, that was a it's getting killed call that I heard, and I'm like, what are you even talking about? He's like, I'm sitting out by the fire and I hear a bunch of coyotes yipping, and then I hear this one that starts crying, and it's followed by this, like, how he described it was the predator mixed with Perry the platypus, kind of just like, but like really loud, and then like a, and then it just stopped, and I'm like, well, I don't know what that is, man. I I've heard some stuff like that, but it ain't supposed to be out here, and so we go inside, get the guns, and flashlights. It's real foggy out. It's summer in the middle of the night. It's cool, so the mist, fog, whatever you want to call it, starts coming out. So I got my pistol and my flashlight. I'm kind of just scanning, and there's a stump out there with some brush growing out the top of it, and I see some blue eye shine. My buddy, he swears that it was normal eye shine, but I see blue, and I see it. I'm like, what's that? Like, oh, it's probably like a raccoon or something, but it's pretty up there. So I was like, maybe it's something crouching. So he scans to the right, I scan to the left, and as I'm coming back to meet in the center, I see this thing that's like 6'3", 6'4", tall, a little bit taller than me, and the eyes are up there, and it's moving back into the swamps. And I have no idea what it was, but it was something. And a couple days pass, and I had a late night at work, so I didn't get home till about 3 in the morning. I'm a grown man. I'm not afraid to admit I'm afraid of the dark when it comes to outside, and especially after seeing that thing a couple days ago and not knowing exactly what it was. I'm walking in the house, and our barn on the side of the house, it's like the corner of the barn is the one dark spot in the whole yard, just because the floodlights and stuff we had out there. I hear that exact noise he was talking about, and to me, it sounded like an old door creaking, and I just felt like I need to sprint inside. So my big self is sitting there sprinting into the house, dropping my key, trying to unlock the door. But I don't know what it was. I, to this day, I still don't know what it is. We've seen orbs and stuff out in those woods, but I've had some people say, oh, it could have been a small Sasquatch because there's Sasquatch activity in that area. Could have been a dog man. I don't think it was by any means. I think we would have known if it was. Uh, I really don't know what to be honest, what it is. Uh, haven't heard it directly since. I mean, there's been some weird happenings out there, but yeah, there's there's the creature.
Yeah, it yeah, there's a lot of weird shit out there. I'll tell you that. But as far as it's not just whatever it is out there, it's also it's bringing this aura of fear,
Hmm.
this presence, this overwhelming heavy presence along with it. And I think that's something that we don't really talk about all that much. And I guess with some people that leads into like, well, you know, it, I don't know, because the dog man is often described as having a fear aura around it, where you get this excessive fear reaction to just seeing it type of thing. And I hear that other stuff like Bigfoot and stuff like that, they can do that stuff too. But with this, I mean, it was far. I don't know that I guess it could be regarded as either a Bigfoot or a Dogman or something else, or rather, and that is truly an intriguing tale. It's you know, I mean, hope it doesn't come back, but
Oh, me too. I was just out there the other day. I want to go up there to. I drove back up to Michigan to visit, and that's the first thing I thought about. But the property just keeps on getting weirder and weirder. It got to the point a couple months before I moved out where something weird started about a year and a half ago. Started happen weird happened to me when I sleep, and it still happens every now and then. I'll be sleeping, and it'll feel like my whole entire body is vibrating like insanely fast. You feel like if you have like one of those massager for your necks or whatever, like as quick as one of those, and I got to the point it was happening so often I'd take my pulse and it was just like over 200. And when this would happen, sometimes I would hear footsteps at the end of my bed, and it takes a lot to make footsteps because in that house I was the only one on that entire side of the house. So even if everybody else on the other side of the house would start making noises, I wouldn't hear it. Especially, I wouldn't feel or hear their footsteps on this side. But I would feel those footsteps, and I would just get terrified for no reason. But then eventually, it started. I'd feel something like rub up on me, grab my foot, like crawl on me, kind of stuff. And that just happens quite often actually, and I didn't know what it was. But yeah, there's the ghost touching me. I would assume it was a ghost. I have had some people say, because nobody can explain the vibrating to me yet, but some people are like, oh, maybe you were abducted or something was trying to abduct you, and that's what you felt was them grabbing you, especially
you
if you
know
feel.
those were suggestions, not check boxes.
Yeah,
You didn't have to click them all.
hey, I figured, what are the chances, you know?
Yeah, from what I hear, that sounds like classic sleep paralysis stuff, where you experience like the weight, the sensations of being molested by something, and it's like all that's missing is just for either an old hag or succubus to come into view and scare the shit out of you. But
Well, about
uh,
that.
okay,
What-
go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry, man.
All right,
I've been leaving this one out just because I've been trying. It's really really hard to talk about.
I get it.
But I did just share it for the first time not too long, about earlier this week actually. But I was going through a time of cleansing myself, getting rid of a lot of bad habits in my life, and once again I'm having a dream, and there's this old lady in the dream, but she's like disgusting looking. And there's a dude sitting there too. I don't know what his significance to this is, but it's a detail. And I'm sitting there, and this lady just starts performing a task with her mouth, and I'm freaking out in the dream, but like there's nothing I can do about it. And when
On the guy or on you?
on me, the old lady's doing
Okay.
it on me,
Yeah.
and I wake up, and there's stuff, places that was not initiated to get there, and I'm a grown man. I'm not going through puberty anymore, if without getting too graphic into it. And I'm just like, I wake up and I just feel this dread. I almost throw up. I'm crying and stuff like that. It was just awful. And I talked to my buddy about it because there was a lot of other stuff going on in my life. And I thought my life was over because of that, because some promises that I made. But yeah, eventually I talked to the right person. They're like, "You familiar with the succubus?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I know what that is." And they're like, "Then why are you asking me? Because you know exactly that's what it was." And it never crossed my mind that's what it was
Hmm.
until talking to somebody about
Yeah. Yeah. That.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry
Yeah.
about that if that was
Yeah. No.
TMI, but that's
I mean,
typically how the encounters go.
yeah. I mean, nightmare induced nocturnal emissions type of stuff. It's part of the bag, and that's something that you're a victim of. So, you really can't, get it. It's like you shouldn't feel guilty about that. I understand it's embarrassing to talk about,
Yeah.
but it is what is.
Mhm.
I mean, it's no different than my lucid dream experience where I was on where I dreamt that I was on a mattress in the middle of a field, and there was a sleep paralysis entity to on the side of the bed. I became aware, and I was like, oh, if I grab that, I'll win the Nobel Peace Prize for whatever. I'll have solved the mystery.
Uh
And
huh.
then I reach out to grab its wrist, but instead I grab its ass cheek. And then when that happens, I wake up and I can feel reality shift. I can feel my wrist bending to the corner of the mattress that I'm holding instead. And that's what the softness was, and it's not along the same lines as what you had, but it's that sort of, it's a funny, goofy, dumb story.
Hmm.
But I can't feel guilty about it, and I guess relating that on to you, it's like, you it's just part of the experience,
Yeah.
and
It,
given that it's this sort of, since this you seem to have this history, it's clear that something you're clearly target. It sounds like you're targeted in some sort of way, but with your spiritual resolve, whatever the hell it is out there, it's. I think they're messing with the wrong guy, and it's clear that they're stupid for coming up to you because you're going to give them a fight.
so, yeah, that's what I keep on hearing, and that's what gets me through it. I was like, because nothing would be happening if I wasn't doing something, is what I like to think. Because it's usually whenever I'm doing something that I should be doing that this stuff happens. And when I'm not doing what I should be doing, nothing happens. So it's definitely quite the pattern. But it gives me encouragement knowing, hey, all right, well, if this is happening, it means I'm doing the right thing in some way, shape, or another.
Yeah, yeah. I guess so. That's all that we all can do. It's like this sort of, you know, again, what do you do with it when it comes at when it's on your doorstep type of thing.
Hmm.
But then I guess that's what sort of keeps us coming back and talking about this stuff back and forth. So I'm glad that you share those experiences. It's really remarkable about all the stuff that happens out there, and a lot of it I'm not too privy on because, like I said, I specialize in alien abduction, and I'm only into the the sleep paralysis stuff due to personal experiences. Otherwise, I wouldn't delve into it.
Hmm.
But because of the nature of what it is that we're dealing with, I have no problem coming across it, and I could just give you my best guess and stuff of that nature. And I'm sure you've come to these conclusions yourself as well. And if
Hmm.
I'm reaffirming something that you've already thought of, just to let you know, make you feel like you're on the right track, I definitely hope I could give you some reassurance there.
Oh yeah, you are, and that's also a fun thing about what it is that we do. Because me personally, like I was the big Bigfoot, UFO, ancient history kind of guy, like hidden history. Wasn't really into the dog man stuff. Wasn't into the like spiritual, like ghost and kind of stuff like that. But one from my own experiences, and two just hearing and talking to all these people, I've kind of gained a va- pretty vast knowledge on all that kind of stuff. So even though it's not my forte, I can still find interest and am able to hold a conversation while in it with somebody who is interested in it. So it's a little bit of everything, best of all the worlds.
Well, as a host, you're going to run into that a lot. It's just it what is. I've talked to people about who've had spiritual stuff, and like I said, it's not my thing, but it is an interesting field. It is interesting to step into the unfamiliar territory by proxy,
Mhm.
and hear everyone who comes into all this different stuff and what it is that they do with it, and I mean, I can understand why some people feel like, oh, I've got the answer to this and this stuff. It's like latching onto some hope to see what works for some people, and sometimes this stuff just it doesn't work for some people. But when it does work for you, that's a blessing that it does.
Mhm.
So I could see why all we could do is just talk about it and give everyone an arsenal as far as what it is that they can look at and what's been done and what they can try.
And I think that is leads to what's important about us doing what we do as far as bringing people a place to talk to, but also sharing our own experiences with other people is to encourage and let people know, hey, most places are a safe place to tell your stuff. I mean, obviously you got your few bad apples, but so that way we can get as much as I hate information dumps, get as much information as possible to where maybe one day we can find the answers to this stuff. There's a lot of it that I don't think we ever will, but you know, I don't believe whenever like let's just use the UFO stuff right now as an example. I don't think it's going to be one person that figures it out by any means. I think it's going to be a community of people that weren't necessarily in contact with each other or ever would have unless they talked to other people. I think it's going to be one of these big groups, probably not MUFON, but one of these big groups that does find the answers. If not, everybody finds the answer out at the exact same time.
Yeah, yeah, that's hopeful. I just figure it's just got to be for me. I think it's going to be a big piece of dumb luck because that's what led to the Patterson Gimlin film. It was a thing of dumb luck, and I know it's like everything is highly debated, but still, hopefully one day something's going to happen, and a Bigfoot is going to trip on a twig and fall right into the center of a trail cam and get busted. You know, we
Oh,
can hope for that still.
that'd be the best way possible. You can't even claim a hoax on that, especially if you catch it
Yeah,
just tripping. Oh man.
yeah, yeah, that'd be a good one. So I guess we'll go ahead and wrap that up as far as our experiences and stuff, and we'll just say like we got some time. We'll talk about some fun stuff because you and me have crisscrossing interests in like other stuff as well.
Hmm.
I'm sure with comic books, video games, and anime as well. You're a big anime
Oh,
enjoyer.
oh yeah.
You were just telling me about this show that you were picking up that you started watching, which is Dan to Dan. I've seen all the memes for it, and it's it's funny, and it's one of those I got to get to it type of things. But you've watched it. You go ahead and sell me on it. Let me know what it's all about, and the listeners, I'm sure, are going to enjoy this.
All right. So honestly, before you get into it, unless you're gonna read it, if you're just gonna watch it, just wait and let it build up to watch because it's definitely one of those ones you're really gonna want to binge watch. But it starts off with a girl who's really into like the occult, really into ghosts and stuff like that. Meets this boy in her class who's really into UFOs. So I forgot exactly what happens, but oh, they bet each other to one's got to go to the girl's got to go to this old building where they say if you stand on the roof, a UFO will come down and you'll see it. And the boy's got to go to this tunnel where if you stand on it, the ghost of this old lady will come out. So they do that. The girl sees a UFO, and the boy sees a ghost. And I'm not going to say what happens with each experience because that's good on their own. So, in typical anime fashion, they team up and form a team to fight against this stuff. But what's different than your stereotypical like anime where they usually just use like typical yokai and Japanese lore from the UFO side, they bring all the cryptids. So in the early episode, the first big cryptid they fight is the Flatwoods Monster, but it's not the stereotypical Flatwoods Monster. Uh, this thing looks like it took HGH, just a mountain muscles, but it's still got the Flatwoods head and everything like that. Eventually, they come into contact with the Loch Ness monster, all this kind of stuff. So it's you got the typical like ghost and stuff like that, different like local legends, but it brings the world of cryptids into it. As far as I've gotten, there's been a couple well-known cryptids in there. I'm not going to say them all, just so people are surprised when they see it. But as far as I've read as far as the first season's probably going to go. It's really good, really funny. Um, the plot is awesome, and they'll let you know exactly what the plot is off the rip. And it is the funniest, dumbest plot to. I'm not going to say any anime I've seen because I've seen a lot, but it's up there. It, it's it takes itself serious enough to be good, but not serious enough to where it's really, really funny. So I would check it
Yeah,
out.
yeah, that sounds fun. I've been lately on my Instagram. I've been looking for cryptids and monsters in anime and bringing them up, and that sounds like it's right up my alley. I know that there's a lot of offhand references in everything, and I was watching Goblin Slayer. Are you familiar with that one?
Yes, I didn't watch too much of it. It's one of those ones I started, but something else that I was watching just took precedence over it. So it's like deep in the back catalog of, oh, I'm gonna pick that up and finish it one day.
Well, in the second season, they actually run into Mikilio Bimbe in an elven village,
Oh,
and that's they call it Mikilio Bimbe. If I go about it in detail in my interview with JB Kane, and I tell her all about it, and that was like a lot of fun. And then there's this other one. There, I discovered that there was this anime movie that came out in the '90s called Coup of the Sea, and it's pretty much sort of like a lost baby Loch Ness monster story where it's Nessie. It's clearly Nessie, and he discovers this baby washed up on the beach, and he takes care of it, and then there's this. I'm trying to think. There's a whole lot of other ones, and when it comes to the Japanese and anime, in reference to the cryptids and the unknown and all that stuff, I mean, they have some of the weirdest encounters with creatures that are just fantastic. I remember hearing one. It was like this story about how they had these creatures with they had like large protruding fangs and armored suits of some sort, and they were just walking through a city or something in the middle of the city. And then there was trying to think of one. It was hmm, nah, just slipped my head.
That's all right.
Anyways, yeah, the Betty and Barney Hill encounter was actually turned into an anime in the I want to say in the late 70s. They actually made a documentary where they animated the Betty and Barney Hill encounter. I mean, they took some liberties with it, and after that, it was generally about UFOs and stuff like this. But it was really good.
Hmm.
I gotta find it and send the link to you, and I'll
Yeah,
send you a bunch of other stuff as well.
that'd be awesome.
There's I've seen references to the Puerto Rican chupacabra. I've seen and I think it was Baki, the grappler.
Mm-hmm.
In the second season, they actually run into a cave with Bigfoot, and it's and it's these little things that I think that are so cool, and I know that they have dedicated anime series like the paranormal stuff is huge with the yokai and the yuri and the Shinto religion and all that stuff. We see that that's all over the place, and I love it. But when it goes into stuff that we're familiar with, like the Western cryptids and stuff, when you see that implemented into it, it I don't know, it gives you like this sort of like feeling, like like, oh, they recognize our culture in a sort of way, and it feels fun. Like I just love seeing Americans depicted in anime, and they're always these loud, brash, you know, big chested, large breasted blondes with tans and stuff like this, and they're
Yeah.
they're loud and obnoxious, but it's always fun, to see yourself through someone else's eyes and stuff like this, and with the cryptids and stuff, I'm sure that sometime we have to do a show where we just talk about that, where we just talk about the animes and the ones that have the cryptids in them, and relay the context in it.
Oh, I'm down, man.
Yeah.
That's a good one. And if people like want a good show, it's honestly one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my entire life. If you want a good show to learn, like if you're interested in learning the Japanese lore of like their yokai and stuff like that, the English dub of Ghost Stories. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I've heard about it. It's notorious for other reasons, but in it I've never really taken a look at it like seriously, other than just as a joke.
It only take it as a joke, but you will learn like the legends of the yokai in it because I mean it's so funny because they just did not care. They already paid for it, so they're going to put something out. But essentially, they just were able to put whatever they wanted over the voiceovers. They had to leave the frames and everything still there, so there had to be the main plot still there. But how they got to that plot point didn't matter how it went. So it's very very dark, not always okay humor, but you, you learn about them like they have the the hand that comes out the toilets and stuff like that. They got the mountain uh, demons and stuff like that. They got the angel of death, but the Japanese version of it. There's a bunch of cool, funny stuff, and you will not stop laughing if you have a messed up humor. That's the thing. Unfortunately, you have to have an awful humor to laugh at it.
Yeah, it's what they say, a product of its time. I guess the blazing saddles of anime.
it's older than it's quite a bit. Yeah, it's older than me. So early
Yeah.
'90s. Yeah,
The I mean the Japanese culture is so rich with all these different types of yokai, and they have like it's we have our little chores and traditions and superstitions for stuff like don't walk under a ladder for bad luck when it's just it's safety stuff because someone's probably using it and you don't want to get something dropped on you. But either way, in Japan they use a sort of yokai as a way to like reinforce good habits. Like there's a toilet demon that if you clean the toilet regularly, then the demon will reward you. If you're a woman, it will reward you by keeping you beautiful. So it's just it and there's so many there's this podcast that I listen to called Uncanny Japan, and it's by this writer, and she does like horror stories and stuff like this, but she does like deep dives into all of these yokai, and it's so fascinating. So if you get a chance to listen to it, we're probably just going to swap series and recommendations right now. But
hmm.
I definitely put that on your list of stuff to look out for.
All right.
It's a good listen, and I'm trying to think of some other stuff. Let's see, because the way that they like have ghosts portrayed with the where they have them with the triangle on the forehead, which was to signify death, that it's dead, that there's a dead body and stuff like this, and then they have the willow wisps and stuff like this. One of the things that really definitely got me into paranormal, I think, was in the '90s was the video game Darkstalkers. Have you heard of that?
I have heard of that. Didn't play it, but I have heard of it.
Yeah, you've probably seen some of the characters in floating around in the Capcom releases, like Capcom versus Marvel. They're usually part of the roster.
Hmm.
They'll they still use those characters like Morgana the succubus.
Yep.
She's like the most iconic one next to Felicia the werecat. But a little fun trivia fact is that Morgana actually changed the scene as far as manga goes with succubuses, because she was originally going to be just another vampire. And in the production, like you'll see this echoed through Street Fighter and other archetypes where they have these figures. There's usually one female that is the femme fatale, the sort of Black Widow type of character, the seductress.
Hmm.
And then they have another one that's the cutesy type of character, which is like think Sakura from Street Fighter 2 and stuff like that. The cutesy high school girl type of stuff, the younger one. And in this one, I think in Darkstalkers, they were going to go through that those archetypes, and I think it was that Morgana was going to be the cutesy one, and Felicia was going to be the seductress. But then they switched it out, and I don't think they wanted to make her a vampire. And then someone made the suggestion, well, what about succubus from Irish lore? And then they did that, and then they like because of the impact, she sort of like reshaped demons as far as through all of manga. From then on, all demons they had the either they had horns or the wings on the head. They had the lower back with the wing, the bat wing type. That her design was definitely influenced a lot of succubuses since then, and that sort of pulled that into the culture. And it's fun to know that that wasn't originally the case, that such a character pulled this sort of this lore into that and it's sort of, if you read manga now, you're going to find a succubus character and it's going to look like Morgana the leotards and the wings and all that stuff. And it's sort of an an ongoing thing, but that's pretty much the start of where it came that she left such a cultural impact.
Yeah, I've always wondered where that did come from because traditionally they are not very attractive in the lore, but that's cool. And you are right. You literally cannot find a single uh, manga or anime that does not have one in it. Like if it has some sense of like paranormal to it, like even One Piece, the best thing ever, my personal favorite, uh, it just added a succubus into it. Like that's one of the character's powers now. So I'm like, okay. So
Yeah. It is a lot of fun. So I guess we'll go ahead and wrap things up here. Might be a good time for us to wrap up the episode. You could
yeah.
always come back, but do you have any parting recommendations for the listeners before we wrap up?
All right. Yeah, I can name a couple. I'll keep it with the basic stuff. One Piece, obviously, y'all watch One Piece. It's a grind, but I promise it's worth it. It's a reason it's the highest selling uh, manga. Well, actually, one of the comics in general. It beat out Batman. Uh, Black Clover's good, and it's almost done. If you like wizards and stuff like that, that would be a good one. Hmm, I got so many. You want some classics? I'm gonna hit you with the Cowboy Bebop, Trigun. If you're looking for movies, hit the classic Akira. I'm just giving people that maybe haven't gotten it. If you're into anime, you already know what to watch. But if you want to get into it, any of those would be good. Those are easy to get into. Naruto, Dragon Ball, if you like screaming and fighting. But yeah, there's
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, I think what I'm really into right now is right now I'm finishing up Vivi. I think it's the Florentine Eyes song or something like that. Let me pull up my Crunchyroll. Yeah, Vivi Fluorite Eyes song. I just finished that. I of course finished Goblin Slayer. I tried to get into My Dear Friend.
Hmm.
That's a comedy one. It just couldn't grab me. And then let's see, Spy Family is huge. I love that one.
Oh, my wife likes that one. I haven't seen it yet, but it's on my list.
Yeah, and then just for fun, I'll watch like Furin, the Beyond the Journey's End with the elf, and that's a good one. One of the ones that I caught because it had like the Snow Maiden yokai in the middle of it was this one called Inspector. It's like in and then a slash and then specter pronoun. It's not like inspector, like specter, like the ghost.
Hmm.
And it's pretty much one where where this it's like an investigation one where it deals with the lives of these monsters and stuff, and it's like justice system for the ghosts and shit like that. It's a really good one.
All right.
So and it's got like this heavy romantic bent to it. So that's a thing to look out for. So I guess I'll go ahead and I guess we'll just end it right here and let the people know where they can find you. And are you doing any? Are you on YouTube yet? Or
Yes, I actually just started. I got 2 episodes right now, and then I'm gonna start working. Probably once I got some time off this during the holidays, going back and uploading the older episodes. But right now, they're after this. I'm uploading. There'll be 3 episodes out at least on YouTube. Yep. So the YouTube channel is Midwest Mythos Podcast. You can find everything of mine at Linktree slash Midwest Mythos Podcast. If you want to get a hold of me, if you want to be on a show, if you have any encounters or you're a researcher or just got a topic or something you really want to talk about, best place to get a hold of me is Instagram, Midwest Mythos, and shoot me a message. I try to get back within as soon as possible, but usually at most it'll be a day. if I'm having a real busy day. But people want to talk, I'll talk to them. So I try my best to get back to people. But yeah, you can find me all there. Um, but everything will be underneath that link tree, and I'll send you the
Yeah.
links to put in the description.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll have the links in the notes. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll catch you later.
Thanks for having me.